Good morning, and welcome to First Unitarian Universalist Church of Rochester. We're a church of open minds and loving hearts, celebrating many sources of wisdom and many spiritual paths. Your faith, your doubts, your questions, your hopes, your identities are welcome here. A special welcome to visitors and newcomers. We're glad you're here. There's a preschool playroom open for young ones throughout the morning. There's also classes for kids following the Time for All Ages. All are welcome, and after service, you can join us down in the Commons for refreshments and conversation, where you can learn how to get involved in the life of the community here at church and beyond. A few things in the Commons you can visit today. You can visit our new social justice coordinator, Shelley Rowe, who will be at the justice table. She's just starting this new position in our church, and we're so grateful for that. We'll formally welcome her next Sunday, but she will be here between services as well down in the Commons, so you can visit her there. And then across the Commons, there's a table for a special event coming up in the next several months called Mix and Mingle Dinners, where you get a chance to gather and a time of connection and fellowship. So this month we're looking for hosts to host dinners either at home or at church. And then after that you can sign up for which dinners you'd like to attend. Just a chance to get to know each other in more casual fellowship sort of ways and make connections and relationships. So you can visit that table downstairs in the Commons. There's also a few limited spots left for the women's retreat. So if you have questions, you can speak with Melissa about that or see more in your e-news. It's a chance to make connections in many ways here at church, trying to build community in a world and a time of a lot of isolation and loneliness. So we hope you find ways to get connected here. Each month, most of our offering goes out our doors to work in the community that shares our values. November's Justice Partner is Community Food Response, which we've had a relationship with over the years. And we have some guests here this morning to talk about their work. Welcome.
Thank you, Luke. My name is Nick Mezzacappa. I'm a retired Episcopal priest. We mingle better than we mix in the Episcopal Church. That's just kind of how it is. I'm on the board of Community Food Response. It's about 8 or 9 people at this point. And this group was formed back in 1993, and its function is to try to bring food to those people who these days we call it food insecurity. If they're poor and can't make the whole day, there's food that's available. And the best thing about it, and the reason that I got onto the committee, because I swore I'd never be on any more committees, was that this is food that's going to be thrown away at the end of the day. Food that is prepared and doesn't require any can openers or anything like that, but food that's ready to eat. That's going to be or would be thrown away ultimately in the United States. So the FDA says that about 30 to 40% of the food in the U.S. isn't eaten. It gets junked. And so we involve a couple of grocery stores and a couple of other places that prepare food, and it's really wonderful. And why I joined is that if you need food, if you're hungry, the family just needs to know that we're there. It's right there by the Salvation Army building, right behind in the lot right behind the Salvation Army building is our outpost. And you just drive up in your car and you hold up in your window on your finger. As we look out you out the window. You need 1 meal, you need 2 meals, you need 3 meals, and we have someone that runs it right out to you. And no questions asked, no cards to see, no Social Security number, no urine sample. Just come right in, and we'll give you food. And there's no count taken as to how many times you've been there. We try to be there for folks. So I'm going to have a little bit more to say. I'm here with Roger Ring, my colleague, who was involved for 40 years, Roger, in chaplaincy training here in Rochester. And we'll answer any questions that you might have about this service. But it's really great because it's so simple. And if you'd like to volunteer, if you'd like to offer some congregational support, financial support, or just spread the word for us, it would be great. CFR. Thanks.
Thank you, Nick, and welcome back to clearly a very comfortable spot in a Sunday morning pulpit. So glad you're here this morning. So every Wednesday night, you can join us for supper and programs here at church. This week, we have a presentation from Rachel Maxwell, our consultant, sharing the results of our feasibility study for a capital campaign for a new church building. So you can come to hear updates from the building team and directly from Rachel, her report. She'll be joining us online, and opening a vote and information about how that vote will go for how to begin a capital campaign. So supper's at 5:30, the forms at 6:15, including childcare. It will be recorded as well and then replayed next Sunday at 12:30 if you can't make it, or if you'd like to just view it another time, you can contact the office. So we hope to see you this Wednesday night. So I invite you to take a breath. Gratitude for the day as we enter this time of worship with these words from our minister in the 1870s, the Reverend Eliza Tupper Wilkes. May our faith in humanity and our message of hope and good cheer light our way. It's good to be together. In just a moment, the opening hymn will call us back, but I invite you now to rise in body or spirit and greet those around you.
These chalice lighting words are from Alan Watts. When we make music, we don't do it in order to reach a certain point, such as the end of a composition. If that were the purpose of music, then obviously the fastest players would be the best. Also, when we are dancing, we are not aiming to arrive at a particular place on the floor as in a journey. When we dance, the dancing itself is the point. As when we play music, the playing itself is the point. And exactly the same thing is true in meditation. Meditation is the discovery that the point of life is always arrived at in the immediate moment.
I'd like to invite the children forward. So this month's theme is generosity. What does it mean to be generous or to have generosity? Giving. Anything else? So, if giving is kind of what it means to be generous, what do you think I have in my Wonder Box today? What can I be generous with? You can say it. I know what you're going to say. People. William? A book. I can be generous with reading, right? With sharing a book. People can be generous with their food, as our speaker talked about, right? So, if I'm generous with something, you hear anything? No guesses what's in my Wonder Box today. Yes. Time. Time in my Wonder Box?
1 hour.
Pizza. Yeah, 1 hour. Touche. So in my Wonder Box, what's in my Wonder Box? Nothing. How can I be generous with nothing? What do you think? I mean, there's no money, there's no food. So if I'm going to be generous with my Wonder Box, there's a little cardboard piece. Well, I suppose that's something in my Wonder Box. But what are some other ways I can be generous without things? Words. That. Good job. I thought we were going to have to go a lot longer before we got there. Sometimes it's the words that are the important part, not necessarily the things. So are there things that you're generous with that aren't things? What are some stuff that you can be generous with? Love. How do you show love? Hugs. Music. I mean, that they have things, but they don't need things. Can everybody be generous with music like Joe and Rose? I can't. By no means can I. But can I be generous with other stuff? Yeah. Because we each have something that is kind of a hidden talent. I mean, you get to share yours every Sunday, but, you know, if they weren't here, you wouldn't necessarily know that about them. And so I want you to think, what's your hidden talent that you can be generous with? Is it hugs? Is it words? Is it time that you can be generous with? Or is it something else that doesn't mean anything to anybody but you? I don't know if anybody would love Harriet's stuffy as much as she does. Right? You love your stuffy? So there are things that are important to us that can't be seen, and there's things that we can do that we can be generous with to share with others. So that's my challenge to everyone today. What can you share that may not cost a dime? And with that, we'll sing the children's benediction and head on downstairs. It can be found in the back cover of your gray hymnal.
Last Sunday, on All Souls Day, we remembered our ancestors, a time that author Jan Richardson calls that thin place in the year that acknowledges how close the worlds are, even when they seem piercingly far apart. I have a very small family and did not have the privilege of knowing any of my grandparents. They had all passed well before I was born. However, I did know a couple of their sisters, my great aunts, who were very generous to me. Neither of these women had children of their own, but they were thoughtful and gracious to pass these heirlooms on to me. My paternal grandfather's sister gifted me with this vase. To the casual observer, it seems ordinary. However, her brother, my grandfather, liberated it, that was her term, from the rubble of the 1906 San Francisco earthquake. He found it in the debris from a destroyed hotel and carried it back to the barren lot where the family was camping out during the evacuation from the subsequent Great Fire. My great aunt gifted it to me 60 years after the fact, and I've had it nearly as long as she did. This bracelet was given to me by my maternal grandmother's sister. It belonged to another of their sisters who died during the 1918 flu pandemic, and it's engraved with her initials on the inside. Of course, I have a number of things from my parents, items that may not be valuable in monetary terms, but are precious to me. A simple plate on which my mom always served my tuna sandwich when I was a child, the bowl in which she always prepared and served her amazing potato salad, and the cut crystal relish boat from which I would always steal the black olives before they got to the Thanksgiving dinner table. I have no idea if it was an heirloom to her, but she certainly was not amused when she came home one day and found that my friends and I were using it as a swimming pool for our troll dolls. So needless to say, I always think of that whenever I use it. I understand that today's generation has no desire to inherit their parents' and grandparents' stuff. That's for a number of good reasons. But I wonder what's going to be the future of these items that were once so meaningful. Whenever I see a flea market, a yard sale, or an estate sale, I wonder what memories are hidden in these otherwise utilitarian items. The people who buy them are looking for hidden value, of course, or something with a current practical use that they'll put in their subsequent garage sale. I admit that I'm a very sentimental person, and I find it difficult to even peruse used goods. A couple of years ago, though, I was thrilled to score a couple of used Pyrex bowls, and I paid a small ransom for them. But I did think about the person who previously owned them. Were they wedding presents? Did they serve their children's favorite soup? How did they end up on a table in a La Crosse shopping mall? And where will they go when I'm gone? Because frankly, original Pyrex lasts forever. Many times we are burdened by our stuff, and I certainly feel that. At some point in the not-too-distant future, Gus and I will be compelled to massively downsize and make decisions, some easy and some difficult. We certainly don't want to burden someone else with this job, and honestly, I don't want my things unceremoniously dumped without a second thought. We can't take it with us, and it's freeing to travel lightly on the journey. May we make the decisions that let it be so, and yet comfort our souls. In gratitude, we will now collect today's offering.
one of my favorite songs. Good morning. It is good to be with you. I invite you to settle in here as we create a place of communal caring and connection. It's time to pause amidst the busyness of our lives, to slow down enough to consider the beauty that is here all around us, and to open a space for listening and love. Here, we honor all who support us in this caring, loving, and all-inclusive ministry. We send gratitude to Mary Jane McCarty and Kate Eberman, serving as our caring coordinators, arranging care for our members and friends in need for the last 2 weeks. Cynthia Dalby will take over tomorrow for the next 2, and we thank her for that. The members of our caring committee are wonderful examples of our compassionate community, holding us up as we go through challenging and happy times. And life can be challenging. We could all use some extra support with what life throws at us. And if you are experiencing those challenges in your life, we encourage you to reach out for support and help. If you need additional care or personal pastoral care, please reach out to Reverend Luke or myself with that request. In this community, we share pieces of our lives with one another. We do this because all people here have value. Each person's experience matters. We lift up those who are experiencing sadness, illness, or loneliness. May the strength and love in our congregation help guide you. And we revel in those who are experiencing joys in their lives. May their happiness lift us all, and may their joy filter into all around them. May all of us find love, hope, joy, and healing strength in our community. Randy McKeeman continues to be hospitalized, and this is day 25 at St. Mary's, currently back in the ICU. He's alert and conversing with family, and his children and their families are here with him this weekend. They continue to be so grateful for your support, thoughts, and prayers. Cards of encouragement can be sent to Phil and Sue Wheeler's address, which is shared down in our cards of support list and in your e-news. Please continue to send healing thoughts to Randy for continued healing. Here, our service to each other, to the world, and to our faith is our focus. Let us carry that out into the wider world. May the faith in the spirit of life, love for the community of earth, and love for the light in each other be ours now and in all the days to come.
I invite you to take a deep breath. Breathe deep the breath of life. Feel below you the earth and its ancient turning. Above you the sky, and beyond that the stars shining with their ancient light, holding you in this moment, this breath. You yourself made of earth and stars. Know that in this house you're named, you're known as beloved, as sacred. I invite you into this time of meditation, this time of prayer, first by sharing silence together. Spirit of life, source of love, God and Gaia of many names and beyond all naming. Each day we have choices to make, some with ease and some with struggle. Some feel as though we can make them on our own. Others feel as though each choice is caught in a web of impact, webs of relationship, of histories, of stories or larger realities often beyond our control. It can be overwhelming to know how to make choices that affect those around us, which affect those around them, and on the web goes. Help us hold our choices with humility and with hope, that there might be ripple effects of peace in the midst of a conflicted world, that there might be the sharing of resources in our community beyond individual pocketbooks and instead toward our commonwealth. We hold in our hearts this day all those who suffer in mind, body, or spirit. We continue to hold the people of Gaza as we support calls for an end to violence and paths for peace and alleviation from suffering, knowing that the tools of war destroy all of us. I invite you to bring the names of people, of places that you're holding in your own heart this day in joy or sorrow, celebration or concern, and silently or aloud now in this time, just speak their names. For all the names spoken aloud and in the silent sanctuaries of our hearts, may we all be held in love and grace. This day we are also glad to share good news that after being in their custody for 8 years, newcomers Lynn and Brian Stamsher have officially adopted Aaliyah Elizabeth. We celebrate with them. So glad. We wish you all the best in this new chapter in your family. And as we enter this week of elections, of what we vote for with ballots and with actions, these words of meditation are from B. Janice Dillon, entitled, "Let the Artists Win." I vote we let the artists win. The ones covered in paint from their last attempt to smuggle across the beauty of a bowl of fruit. And I say we let the food bank volunteers win, the ones always carrying around their agenda for the meeting, waging campaigns to stock shelves filled with bread. I'd like to see the nurses extend their string of victories from the hospital bed to the nation's boardrooms until we care for each other, as if death were inevitable and mercy was the only thing that made the rounds bearable. I say we let the kindergarten teachers win, as they raise up small edifices for the beauty that words will never capture or reveal. We'll let the grandparents win when they tell the old stories that hold us in their keeping, and the children to win that yell play constantly, the ones who have already cost us so much of our final productivity, the only tyrants who can command the true attention of the wise. And then when those with weapons come, we say, I'm sorry, but whether you win or lose is not really our game. I've lost 1,000 wars of the heart. And those to whom I have waved my own white flag and surrendered my heart and the whole and holy of my life in commitment to, those will never let me go. May that be so. Amen. Our hymn of meditation is "This Is My Song" in the Great Hymnal. I invite you to remain seated as we sing together.
The first reading is At the Altar by Eleanor Ross Taylor. That bag you packed me when you sent me to the universe. Camp after camp, I've opened it, debating whether to unpack. Not yet, not yet. Why did I feel so much in it was dangerous on the playground? Too good for every day. Feel those splendid fireworks hazardous to institutions, unmannerly to etiquette, so that time after time I found myself saying, not yet. At each new place I faced it, it suggested, here, spread out your things, put on this coat, open this bottle. No, not yet. Sometimes throwing something out, giving things away, lightening my load. The more I pull out, the more it seems some days is left inside, the heavier it is. Sometimes I think this package is almost a door, the opening of which, careening across heaven, could be fatal. Some days now, I wonder if I'll ever dare face my given garments, permanently wrinkled, surely out of date. Your travel thought wasting in its tissue, flesh corrupt till I've absorbed it, like those stitches that dissolve in an incision where something's been removed. The second reading is The Bell and the Blackbird by David White. The sound of a bell still reverberating, or a blackbird calling from a corner of the field, asking you to wake into this life, or inviting you deeper into the one that waits. Either way takes courage. Either way wants you to be nothing but that self that is no self at all. Wants you to walk to the place where you find you already know how to give every last thing away.
Day 1. Choose one thing to give, hopefully in some useful or at least meaningful, eco-friendly way, to someone who might need it. Donate, recycle, or somehow otherwise be rid of an item. Day 2. Choose 2 things to usefully, helpfully give something away. Day 3. Now it's just getting practical. Choose 3 things to give away. Day 4, 4 things to be rid of. Then day 5, 5 things, and so on, for 30 days. Ready, set, go. The rest of the sermon time is for you to work on your list of things you're going to do. Not really, but you can. There's a clever trick of hiding your phone in your hymnal so you look pious, but you're not. I may have done this once on the chancel in what I would call a liturgical emergency, and nobody knew. I'm not sure why I'm giving you the suggestion to not be present, but here we are, back to giving it away as a practice. Sometimes this practice is called downsizing in the modern world, or more recently in a larger movement toward minimalism, which this practice of starting one item a day and then adding one more each day to give away 30 days to build a practice of letting go comes from a documentary about minimalism. It is, like many things in the world, similar to ancient practices that are not new, of letting go, of generosity, of releasing and resisting attachment and the overconsumption of material things. In Judaism, there's a clear basic standard of what's called tithing, giving at least 10% of all that you have, sometimes understood as charity, but the deeper root of the Hebrew word always meaning justice, fairness, reciprocity, redistributing resources, communal well-being. I remember an unlikely guest at a church gathering when I was growing up as a youth. I was at a youth gathering with a few thousand other moderately liberal Lutherans, and one of our guest speakers was a prominent evangelical speaker, Tony Campolo, who emphasized the social teachings of Jesus. And I remember him saying, "Yes, compared to you Lutherans, I take the Bible a little more literally," which for me means that when Jesus says to sell all your possessions and give the money to the poor, then I should sell all my possessions and give the money to the poor. Of course, we can be quick to find a lot of important caveats in all of this. Reasonable resistance to any absolutist interpretation of anything, but maybe the further we get from some of these ancient teachings, the more we can justify things we shouldn't. These traditions go back much further than our own Judeo-Christian taproot, of course, to many practices of communal sharing and reciprocity with almost every indigenous culture, earth-based traditions of shared resources and resistance to consumerism and materialism. Ancient practices within Jainism, Hinduism, and Islam, practices of asceticism where you only have what you truly need. And that is the path to spiritual enlightenment or fulfillment or peace. Catherine Ingram, a co-founder of the Insight Meditation Society, writes this about passionate presence. She said, the Buddha spoke about three kinds of giving. First, beggarly giving, which is friendly giving, or first beggarly giving, then friendly giving, and then kingly giving, she called. So first, beggarly giving is when we give the least of what we have. We give what we don't really need, that we would never miss, what we might have otherwise thrown away, kind of like a typical trip to the Goodwill. Friendly giving, next, is when we give what we use and like. Not our very best of items, maybe, but what we can afford and might appreciate having the gift ourselves. And kingly, or maybe noble or supreme giving is a different order altogether. She writes, it's when we give the very best of what we have. When we give more than we keep for ourselves. When we give more than we can really afford, or when we give with no expectation of reciprocity. In Awakened Awareness, she writes, we give because the joy of generosity far exceeds the satisfaction of hoarding or displaying wealth. We give because this very life is a gift itself and wants to be completely used up, not saved for another time, wants to spread perfume around everyone it meets. There is something here for me which is a nagging reminder for the soul, a growing edge for me, of how to give away with meaning and humility and true generosity rather than selfish decluttering or just downsizing or getting rid of things I don't want or use anymore. It's especially hard because I like things. I like and appreciate aesthetics, and I think it can be a beautiful way of interacting with the world, an artistic engagement with material and what the world is made of. Like some of these items in my office that I want to share with you, that we don't have time to go through all the ridiculous things in my office, or God forbid, my home that I have collected, but a few gifts that themselves practice generosity, They offer to me in a regular presence something like a gateway for the soul to memory and story and meaning and family, a connection and reminder of who I am and who I'm called to be, whom I'm in relationship with, whom I'm accountable to, or companioning the world with, to never forget what community I'm part of. So the first is this fabric hanging here on the front of the pulpit with words from my Methodist heritage that was hung in my grandparents' house. This part of my religious heritage that was often overshadowed in my mind by my Lutheran heritage because my grandpa was a pastor and we went to a Lutheran church. But this is a reminder of those blue-collar Methodists from the other side of the family who embodied their values with deep generosity and whose legacy still calls me to task to be more grateful and simple in this world. So these words of a hymn they loved were given to them as a gift from someone. This object offers the gift of song every time I see it hanging in my office. And the words are these, and this tune goes like this. In the bulb there is a flower, in the tree an apple seed, in cocoons a hidden promise, butterflies will soon be free. In the cold and snow of winter, there's a spring that waits to be unrevealed until its season, something God alone can see. It's a simple song. Same hymn that happened to be a favorite in my wife's family that I sung at my grandma-in-law's funeral, interweaving these many strands of meaning and history, these words of promise and possibility and hope. I also have, don't worry, there's not many things, but a few more. I have this glass object of a jellyfish. I'll explain. It was given to me by a member of this church in my first couple of years here, after they had one of my children, who will remain nameless, in a faith development class. And the children were asked to draw a picture of their family, and one of my children included in their family the picture of a jellyfish. Nobody knows why. I don't know if there was a deep metaphor in it. I don't know if the jellyfish represented a family member being particularly nebulous or potentially lethal or what. But it's pretty funny, and so it stays on my shelf in my office, and I laugh most of the time when I look at it. And it's a beautiful connection to one of my children and to a member here. I also have this small bell, a prized possession of a person in my previous congregation. You can maybe hear it a little bit. This little bell, I was gifted this from this person that was in this congregation who struggled mightily in many ways, sometimes would sleep in his car in the parking lot there, but also engaged deeply with the life of the congregation through music, through cooking and choir, through conversation and deep thought and a deep history and knowledge of Unitarianism. I was gifted this bell shortly after he died, after I'd helped spread his ashes in a quiet, cold, wooded ceremony. And so this sits on my desk, held in an oddly perfect matching bowl, both with peacocks on them, that comes from my grandmother's home as well. I never had a good place to hold this without it rolling on the shelves in my office, and now it sits there, held in another story and memory. It's a reminder of the rich warmth a soul can have that's often tangled up with loneliness and struggle. How we all hold some song within us deep down that somehow can't be lost. Antoine de Saint-Exupéry writes, "We don't live by things, but by the meaning of things." That phrase has stayed with me, and in some ways has probably justified my regular acquiring of objects, things that hold some meaning to me. I, like Trish, am quite nostalgic. And I'm often known in the family as being the one who likes to hold all the special items. Like, what do we do with this? Oh, Luke would like that. And they're normally right. The stained glass lamp, the crystal candy jar, the relish tray, all the things. Sometimes I have to fight against my inclination to hold on to all the things. Because in the words of Peter Mayer, if everything is holy now, and you find meaning in all the stuff. It feels like blasphemy to just give it away, so I have a tendency to preserve things for the sake of preservation. And I think there's something within that I'm called to wrestle with a bit. At each new place I faced it, writes the poet, it suggested, here, spread out your things, put on this coat, open this bottle, but no, not yet. Sometimes throwing something out, giving things away, lightening my load. The more I pull out, it seems, they write, some days it seems what's left inside, the heavier it is. In a culture we know of too much stuff, of systems of consumerism and materialism, we all know that story that even if there are good people and good intent involved, often we're caught in systems that make us feel like we don't have enough or don't have the right things, and we can get it pretty cheaply at the expense of someone else. Anna Havron, a minister and former professional organizer, which is a fascinating combination, recently wrote an article called The Soul of Things about the ancient practice that folks like Marie Kondo and others have lifted up in pop culture these days about how to spark joy in things. She wrote about this idea of objects having some spirit, being inspirited. She says, I prefer to live in a world with more of a sense of reverence. And that means recognizing my connection with other lives through the objects I buy or own, use or discard, whether they are the lives of human designers and makers and shippers of these objects or the lives of plants and animals in the natural world that are affected by these objects. She says, my sense of connection is deepened even more when I choose to live my life as though household things themselves are inspirited in some sense. First, by being created by some human being all over the world that I likely don't know, or next becoming spiritually charged with how I use them, how I am in dialogue with them. She goes through these various practices of letting go, traditions of burying items, burning items in different times and places, ritually retiring items from good use when they no longer function as they once were. She finally wrote, my goal for my home is to have no more in it than I can take good care of and use respectfully and well. So as we move through these days, beginning of November, which feel almost like the cultural aisles of discount Halloween over here, right next to the plastic glowing Santa over here, I find this turning into November sometimes a hard gateway into the high holy days of feasting and excess and things. And if we enter it with a reminder of the meaning of things, that generosity can be alive and inspirited in things, and the practice of generosity and resisting materialism, and put it in a communal perspective, be it a cloth passed down from generations or the gift of communal resources with your vote for, say, a referendum, what have I received? What brings not just joy, but meaning and depth to my life and to the lives around me? Not just stored away in a case or a bag for another day, but as my plumber grandfather who restored old cars always said, echoing Joy Harjo in my mind in her poem about vases put in museums, he said, things are meant to be used. That's what they're there for. And then I wonder, in our giving and receiving, how are we practicing a type of generosity that honors the spirit within these items that accompany our days? So I have one more gift I want to show you, but I can't show you. It's a story. A congregant recently offered our family the gifts of some precious rocks that were gathered over years with a love of geology and the North Shore. Several of these rocks are now in process of creating a fairy garden in our backyard. But the gift was not the rocks, but the story, and one in particular. She said, my father, who loved rocks, found the most beautiful, brilliant, stunning rock along the North Shore of Minnesota, and he took me to the shore, took hold of that rock, and he threw it far into the water and said, sometimes we must return the gifts to where they come from. That rock's home was in the water, and it will be a gift to us knowing it is where it is meant to be. Sometimes the gift is not holding on to the thing, but the story. to our unfolding dialogue with this world and with each other, and practicing a type of generosity that brings us all closer to flourishing, to belonging, and to home. The hymn is Simple Gifts. I invite you to rise in body or spirit as we sing. Invite you, as you're comfortable, place a hand over your heart or toward the sky or earth in gratitude. In these winding days where at every turn we are bombarded with choice, with possibility, and with things, may we turn and turn till we come round right together. Amen.